At first, no one paid much attention to this heavy snowfall. The temperature dropped to -80 degrees, houses were buried under heavy snow, and the power system went down. Instead, I was lying on the couch, eating barbecue and singing songs. Feeling bored, I added my good friends and ex-girlfriend into a group chat. I posted a video and cheerfully asked them if they wanted to eat. I feel so alive. In my past life, I caught my girlfriend Yang Shui cheating with my good friend Zhong Chong and exposed their plot to deceive me and harm me for money. They angrily pushed me out of the door, which I never expected. The weather, which should have been calm and sunny, suddenly turned eerie and started snowing heavily. The temperature dropped to -80 degrees overnight, and I froze to death at the doorstep. As I was about to pass away, I swore that if there is a next life, I will make them pay for it. Unable to survive, unable to die. At that moment, I froze stiff. I suddenly felt very hot and someone nudged me. Startled, I opened my eyes and realized I was blocking a colleague's way at the company's entrance. He seemed a bit annoyed. I instinctively checked my phone and realized it's August 13th. I've been reborn. I somehow went back to 20 days before I was murdered. I'm shocked and excited at the same time. I laughed at myself for still being alive, then angrily burst into tears. I wanted to rush back and kill the person who betrayed me, but soon calmed down, because I suddenly remembered the eerie and scary snowstorm before my death. This summer has been unusually hot. Everyone has been relying on air conditioning to stay cool, and it wasn't until the end of August that we started feeling a bit cooler. Who would have thought that I would freeze to death not long after September? So now, the most important thing is not to seek revenge on them, but to find a way to avoid that prolonged period of cold weather. When I went to resign to my boss, my colleagues all thought I was crazy. Later, I returned to the house where I lived with Yang Shui, packed up all my important belongings, but I didn't leave right away. I had already planned to retaliate against them on my way back because, even if I was leaving, I couldn't let them get away with it. I found Yang Shui's documents, downloaded a few online loan apps, entered all of Yang Shui's information, then cooked a nice meal, and now I'm waiting for my girlfriend to come back from work. When Yang Shui came home from work, she was pleasantly surprised to see me smiling and a table full of delicious dishes. I gently told her that I planned to sell one of the houses my parents left me and use the money to buy the one she likes for our wedding house. Yang Shui and Zhong Chong have been plotting together to persuade me to sell my parents' house and cheat me out of my money. When they finally heard me agree to sell the house, Yang Shui was very happy and came running over, wanting to kiss me. I immediately pushed her away and suggested, "Let's go eat. I've taken a week off starting tomorrow morning to look for a new place with the real estate agent." While eating, I took out my phone to film a funny video with her, as Yang Shui usually hates being filmed by me. But today, she was incredibly cooperative because she was trying to persuade me to sell the house. She blinked when I asked her to, and shook her head when I requested. As soon as I saw that over 1 million loans were credited in the app, I immediately uninstalled it and put my phone down with a smile, saying, "Oh well, couldn't get it right, so not filming anymore." I had a great meal with Yang Shui. We both had a good time and the atmosphere was very harmonious. The next day, after Yang Shui went to work, I packed my luggage, picked up my cat Baxi, and left. My parents left me 2 houses before they passed away. One is a school district house in the city area, which I rented out after I started living in the school dorm during high school. The other house is a small cottage in the suburbs. Even though it's located far from the city and the price is not comparable to villas in the city, it's more than enough to exchange it for a better apartment in the city. However, this is my home, and I simply cannot sell it. The room hasn't been lived in for a long time and is covered in dust. I'm looking for a cleaning lady while thinking about how to deal with the extreme cold weather. I thought about using underfloor heating and air conditioning for heating, but that's not enough. With such heavy snow, the water pipes will definitely freeze and the power lines will be cut off. It's impossible to rely on underfloor heating and air conditioning for heating. What about the air raid shelter? I suddenly jumped up and dashed into the basement. On the east wall of the basement, there was an iron door. I grabbed the rusty handle and pulled hard, feeling a rush of cool air hit me. This is it. Years ago, when my dad was renovating this house, the wall of the basement against the mountain suddenly collapsed, revealing an air raid shelter built during the War of Resistance against Japan. This cave is 4 meters wide and 50 meters long. It is warm in winter and cool in summer, and very dry inside. So my dad cleaned it up and turned it into a storage room. In the summer, our family of 3 even comes here to rest. It's very cool and comfortable. My mom joked that the bomb shelter has saved us a lot on electricity bills. With this temperature-controlled bomb shelter, I'm no longer worried about extreme temperatures. I asked the cleaning lady to help me clean it out, and also hired a few workers to repaint the inside. After finishing all these tasks, it was already dark outside. At that moment, Yang Shui called me and affectionately asked about selling the house. After exchanging a few words, I hung up the phone. This woman is really scheming against me. She says she misses me, but didn't even notice my missing belongings. Right now, she's probably celebrating with Zhong Qiong after successfully tricking me into agreeing to sell the house. But I don't have the mood to deal with her because I have more important things to do. The next morning, I went to find someone to help me improve the ventilation of the air raid shelter. I vividly remember that before I died, the heavy snow had already covered my waist, so the original vents will definitely get blocked by heavy snow. The workers just did the job without asking much or chatting much. They added long stainless steel pipes to each vent and welded stainless steel caps on top. This way, the snow won't fall into the vents and block the ventilation. Then I bought 2 sets of fireplaces. One is only for heating, and the other is for heating and cooking. Both sets have chimneys that can extend outside, so I don't have to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning after the workers installed them. I bought a large quantity of firewood and charcoal, bought a new oven, just in case when the doomsday comes and the water, electricity, and gas stop working. Having the most basic wood fuel will be the safest option. It can warm you up and cook food. Even though the cave maintains a constant temperature, I'm not sure how low the temperature will drop during the doomsday. So, better safe than sorry. Realizing that the pipes might freeze and burst, I decided to have a worker come help me dig a well in the basement. Just like a bomb shelter, the well will have water at a constant temperature, so it won't freeze no matter how cold it gets outside. The worker drilling the well was surprised and asked why I wanted the well in the basement instead of the yard like others. I had a ready excuse, saying I was developing skincare products and needed groundwater. The worker bought my story and admired me, then quickly finished setting up the water well. Next, I will start stocking up on supplies. If there are no supplies at home, we might not only freeze to death, but also starve. Considering the possibility of a power outage, I bought 30 boxes of candles, 20 solar-powered charging lights, 20 high-capacity power banks, 2 boxes of matches, 2 boxes of lighters, and 2 boxes of windproof lighters, 500 catties of rice, 50 catties of flour, 20 boxes of dry noodles, 20 boxes of instant noodles, 200 boxes of water, various dried vegetables, chicken, duck, beef, lamb, and various toiletries, and various medications I can think of. Gauze, disinfectant, thick and thin down comforters, down jackets, hats, scarves, moisture-proof gloves, high-cut waterproof and warm thick boots. Bought another snow shovel, sled, axe, and saw, various tools and self-defense weapons that might come in handy. Supplies keep coming to the house constantly. The property guards and neighbors curiously watch my house while there's constant renovation noise. To avoid suspicion, I tell them that the house has been vacant for a long time and is undergoing renovation, so they won't find it strange to see workers coming in and out. Isn't it common for houses to be like this before moving in? After I have stored all these supplies properly, there will be only 1 week left before the cold wave hits. During this time, Yang Shui calls me every day to ask about selling the house. Several times, I almost burst out laughing. When I turned on the monitor installed the day I left, I saw Yang Shui talking to me affectionately on the phone, while being intimate with Zhong Chong in her arms. I suppressed my disgust, pretended to ask Yang Shui affectionately, "Do you love me?" Yang Shui replied insincerely, "Of course, I love you, my darling." After saying that, she planted a big kiss on Zhong Chong's face and said, "Big baby, did you hear that? Your wife is kissing you." As soon as she finished speaking, Zhong Chong started to laugh silently with her. I casually replied, "I heard you, but why do I feel like you're kissing a pig?" As Zhong Chong in her arms immediately got up, full of anger ready to explode, Yang Shui quickly raised her hand to signal him to be quiet, and gently said to me, "Silly boy, don't call yourself a pig. I'm definitely not talking about myself. By the way, have you seen Zhong Chong these days?" Yang Shui seems a bit nervous. She kept waving her hands at Zhong Chong saying, "No, I didn't do it. I wonder what he's up to." I pretended to breathe a sigh of relief, hoping nothing bad had happened. Lately, he's been borrowing money everywhere to pay off his brother's gambling debts. I tried to advise him several times, but he wouldn't listen. The day before yesterday, when I left, I saw a man with 3 wealthy ladies arm in arm entering a hotel. He looked a lot like Zhong Chong. I hope it's not really him. Yang Shui's face turned pale as she watched the surveillance. Zhong Chong looked flustered. I hung up the phone with a smile. Yang Shui has started questioning him in the surveillance footage. Zhong Chong is swearing and insisting that he absolutely did not go to a hotel with anyone, and is accusing me of smearing him. I'm watching them arguing in the surveillance footage with a smile. I wonder when they will realize that my belongings are missing. But I am more curious about Yang Shui's reaction when she realizes she has taken on so much debt. Unfortunately, they only know that my parents left me a house, but not the address, so even if she finds out that I have lied to her, she won't be able to find me. Thinking about her angry and helpless expression at that moment, I am actually looking forward to it. After turning off the monitoring, I went to the market to pick up my reserved pork and vegetables. When I got home, the cleaning auntie had already gathered 8 or 9 aunties at the door, waiting for me. Everyone started to get busy as soon as they entered the house, washing vegetables, mixing fillings and dough, skillfully making dumplings, wrapping wontons, and frying meatballs. The things I make at home are better than what I buy outside, in terms of both ingredients and hygiene. I don't want to end up getting stomachache from eating unhygienic food during the apocalypse. I have already rented 5 commercial freezers to store food. When the temperature drops, the outdoors serve as a natural freezer, so even if the power goes out indoors, I'm not worried. The aunties were surprised at how many dumplings I was wrapping. I told them it's for donation to a nursing home. While wrapping dumplings, I chatted with the aunties about the high electricity prices abroad, how people are buying lots of firewood to stay warm in winter, and the shortage of natural gas causing heating problems in winter. The discussion was lively. In the end, I firmly said, our country is still the best, but accidents can happen. Like with charcoal, it's best to have some stocked up. Even if we don't use it, having it at home can ease our minds. The aunties were convinced by my intentionally spreading anxiety, agreeing wholeheartedly that it's better to be safe than sorry. I felt relieved and hoped they would really go buy some. Extreme weather. Doomsday is approaching. Saving one person is saving one person. 5 freezers are packed full. After the long hot weather, people finally enjoy the long-lost coolness. However, I know this is just a small treat before the arrival of death. I started having the vegetable farmers deliver vegetables to me. apart from a small amount of leafy greens like spinach. Most of them are cabbage, sweet potatoes, and pumpkins, which can all be stored for a long time. I have placed them all in the deep corners of the bomb shelter. After all this, with just 2 days left until the cold weather arrives, Yang Shui finally realized that she owes a large amount of debt. She called me and asked what's going on. I'm lying on the sofa, casually stroking Baxi, who's snoring on my lap, and I lazily say, I have no idea about loans. All the money has been transferred to your card, and now you want to deny it. Yang Shui is furious and can't contain her anger. What does UGE really want to do? I replied with a slightly cold tone. Are you talking about the 1.23 million you transferred to me a few days ago? You finally admitted it. Yang Shui was furious and then turned around to ask me, what did I pass on to you? When did I pass it on to you? I sent a photo over. It's a promissory note clearly stating that she borrowed 1.23 million in cash. No mistakes in the count. To be repaid in full within a year. Get me 2 copies of the interest. Yang Shui was suddenly furious. When did I borrow money from you? Yang Shui roared on the phone, demanding that I immediately return the money, or else she would take me to court. I smirked. I wasn't afraid of her reporting me since I had prepared evidence. I had a promissory note, withdrawal records of large amounts of cash, and bank surveillance footage. While I forged the promissory note, she personally signed it herself. So, never casually write your name on a blank piece of paper. Even if she could survive the apocalypse, with such a solid chain of evidence, the judge would not likely be on her side. After saving the phone recording of Yang Shui trying to avoid paying, I hung up the phone. I went out for a meal, enjoying the last moments of peace in the post-apocalyptic world. I cherish these moments. I had my favorite Sichuan cuisine, bought a big bunch of flowers, and leisurely made my way back. Recently, Yang Shui has been constantly calling and texting me, and even hurling insults at me. I haven't blocked her or replied. Before the apocalypse, she was too consumed with anger to notice that I had thrown away all the thick blankets and clothes in the rental house. It's actually quite nice this way. On the last day of the end of the world countdown, I did a final check on the ventilation opening of the air raid shelter, closed all the doors and windows to prevent the pipes from freezing. I closed the water valve after taking a shower and drained the water from the pipes. Then I brought in the blankets that had been drying for several days into the shelter and made my bed and spread out its cozy nest. Tonight I'm going to sleep here, in this elongated air raid shelter, with the lights turned off like a long snake. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the night. As I stretched my hand out from the blanket, I could feel that it had gotten much colder. I put on a thick and long cotton robe, and when I stepped out of the bomb shelter, I shivered from the cold. I quickly ran downstairs to the first floor, but it was even colder here than in the basement. I wrapped the cotton robe tightly around me, but I was still shivering uncontrollably. I shakily pull back the curtains and see the blinding white snow outside. A big clump of cotton-like stuff falls down. It's heavy snow. The apocalypse cold has arrived as expected, and the power is still on. I went back to the air raid shelter, changed my silk quilt to a down comforter, laid a blanket on top of it, feeling warm and wrapped up in textiles. It gave me a strong sense of contentment as I picked up my tablet. Yang Shui and Zhongqiong are huddled on the sofa, wrapped tightly in all the clothes and the thin summer blanket. The heater is on, but Zhongqiong is still shivering. With a trembling voice, he asks, how come we don't even have a thick blanket at home? Yang Shui shivered and shook her head. I don't know either. These things used to be kept by UGE. Wait, all of UGE's stuff seems to be missing now. Wow, they finally caught me. I was lying in bed watching my tablet and couldn't help but burst out laughing. You'll find out soon. Not only the blankets and thick clothes are gone, but also the food. When I left, I had already emptied and disposed of all the food in the house, leaving only beverages behind. Yang Shui and Zhongqiong don't cook. They always order takeout. They might not even realize there's not even a grain of rice at home. I just hope that in this cold weather, someone can still deliver takeout to them. I burst into laughter. Then my phone rang. It was Yang Shui on the other end. I answered, but she suddenly stuttered. There was only heavy breathing on the other end. I stayed silent and waited. It felt so satisfying to play cat and mouse. UGE, what do you really want to do? Yang Shui took a deep breath and slowed her pace. I replied faintly, what are you talking about? If you cared even a little bit about me, you wouldn't have just realized today that all my things are gone. I chuckled coldly, and you wouldn't have forgotten that I told you I took a week off for vacation. That week is already over, but you didn't even ask me why I haven't gone back yet. After saying this, I hung up the phone, set my phone to silent, and buried my head to sleep. When I woke up again, it was already 10 a.m. I checked my phone and saw news about the heavy snow covering everything. Some people were still enjoying the snow, but most were lamenting that they couldn't go out to work. Everyone was puzzled by the weather in September. How could it suddenly turn so cold overnight and snow so heavily? And this is insomnia. But whether it's joy or cries, no one seems to notice that this is a disaster. Probably because the people who froze to death last night can't get online anymore. I got up and went to the kitchen. After preparing breakfast for myself and Bob, I found out that the heavy snow had almost buried the windows. Through the gap, I could see big fluffy snowflakes falling rapidly and heavily. I suddenly realized that if the heavy snow continues like this, my 2-story small building will soon be buried. Once the ventilation duct for the bomb shelter is covered, I will suffocate inside the house. I broke out in a cold sweat instantly, but the heavy snow is still fierce and relentless. I have no way to make it stop. The only thing I can do is to shovel the snow. I quickly put on a windproof down jacket and then opened the door leading to the terrace on the second floor. The strong wind and heavy snow outside are hitting people's eyes so they can't open them. It's obvious notice that the temperature has dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. I realize that a bitter winter disaster has arrived. Yang and Shui, you guys are in for it.